Ena Luya ambaye anaweka hope zake kwa Wetangula hapo Mdavadi, hiyo umepiga miss.
A viral video captures the moment former Kimenini MP
when allies of Speaker Wetangula stormed a lodge demanding that a rival be taught a lesson, one politician reached straight for his gun. Yes, an actual firearm in a crowded political meeting. This wasn't a movie scene, it was real, and it captured just how fragile these confrontations can become. The tension may have ended without shots fired, but the fact that it escalated that far tells us something dangerous about leadership battles. Why are political rivalries in Western Kenya starting to feel like street fights instead of debates? Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How does a sharp comment about greed turn into a confrontation with a gun? That question is at the center of what happened at the lodge, and to understand it, we have to start with Joseph Pepella. He stood before locals and described the leadership of a powerful figure not as noble but as selfish, accusing senior politicians of clinging to power while younger leaders are left with empty promises. On the surface, his words were simply a critique, the kind of dissent common in politics. Yet in a society where public image and loyalty define survival, those remarks were like striking a match in a room already filled with fumes.
A wise man standing on the ground will see farther than an idiot on top of a tree.
What began as a pointed observation turned into an attack on dignity, and for Wetangula's allies, silence was not an option. From inside the lodge, noise rushed like a wave as his allies stormed in, voices raised with insults, chairs scraped against the floor, and the space that had hosted calm discussions a few minutes earlier became a stage for fury. The air buzzed with chants and shouts demanding respect for their leader. Some came to confront Pepella directly, others to put on a show of strength so that no one could doubt their loyalty. In their eyes, his critique was not mere speech but an act of defiance against an entire camp, and loyalty demanded a decisive answer. In that storm of accusations, dignity and anger collided. Then came the most shocking image: Chris Wamalwa reaching for his weapon. The polished metallic frame caught the light as he drew it into the open. Conversations ceased for a moment, drowned out by the unmistakable action of a weapon prepared for use. Tension thickened, the crowd leaning forward yet pulling back, frozen between disbelief and alarm. Some denied any plan to fight, insisting later that no violence was ever intended. Yet the presence of a cocked gun in a packed lodge surrounded by rivals offered a very different picture. Words had moved into the realm of intimidation, and intimidation carried a weight heavier than debate. The line between courage and fear sharpened. For Wamalwa, the firearm was not only about self-defense, it was about projecting dominance, reminding everyone that crossings of certain boundaries wouldn't go unanswered. At the same time, his rivals stood their ground verbally, but held their distance physically, because behind their shouts lived a hesitation, a calculation of survival. No one wanted to be the first to push chaos into bloodshed, but neither did anyone want to appear weak. This was the rhythm of fear meeting bravado, a dance where each side tested how far they could perform power without tearing the fragile thread of restraint. This standoff was not random. Political identity is often reinforced by showing loyalty under pressure, not only at the ballot, but also in moments of confrontation. The chorus of insults and the unsheathing of a gun were part of a display, a mob-like performance intended to defend honor and showcase unwavering commitment. Yet, even while gestures were sharp and threats loud, there was still restraint, an invisible boundary holding back from outright collapse into violence. The spark of Pepella's critique had reached its peak, turning a clash of words into a clash of presence, where survival of political standing became the real battle. So how did a critical statement ignite into a scene with a gun cocked amid the crowd? Because in politics, humiliation cuts deeper than debate. It challenges loyalty, questions authority, and threatens survival. That is why critique transforms into conflict so easily. It is never just about what is said, but about the power those words strip away or give. And beyond this chaotic confrontation lies an even larger struggle, the fight over who will shape Western Kenya's political future. Why would a single heated confrontation at a lodge matter for elections still 3 years away? The answer lies in the fact that Western Kenya is not just another region of the country. It is a political battleground, a zone where shifting loyalties and generational rivalries will shape who sits at the center of power in Nairobi years from now. When men draw weapons or trade insults here, it is not simply about pride in the moment. It is also about sending a message to the country at large. This region's voice cannot be ignored. Western Kenya's position has always carried weight because of numbers. Large populations, diverse communities, and an electorate that often tilts national contests all make this ground too important for any coalition to overlook. That is why the spectacle at the lodge rippled outward, drawing attention far beyond its locality. What looked like chaos on the surface was in fact part of a bigger contest for credibility and control, as eyes already turned toward 2027 and even further into 2032 succession battles. Each confrontation, each performance of loyalty embeds itself into the larger story of who will dominate politics in the decade to come. Moses Wetangula understands this, which is why his push for unity against rising youthful voices has been so forceful. For years, older power brokers have spoken of solidarity as the key to bargaining strength, but younger rivals see that unity as an excuse to deny them space. They argue that political greed has starved the next generation of leaders and that powerful elders are sitting on the future like a locked chest. The clash is not just about personalities, it is about whether the region will continue to be defined by the weight of long-established figures, or whether fresh voices will break through and change the balance entirely. The viral clip that spread after the lodge drama captured this generational debate perfectly. It used the baffling but striking metaphor of a wise man standing grounded against a fool perched recklessly on a tree. On the surface, it was just a soundbite to snatch attention online, but underneath, it symbolized contrasting visions of power, one rooted in established caution and patience, another seen as reckless ambition that threatened stability. Viewers across the country seized on the phrase because it condensed a whole political philosophy into a single memorable image, and in that metaphor, the region's future was suddenly caught between age-old wisdom and disruptive hunger. Displays of force like the gun standoff are not without purpose. They operate as loyalty rituals, staged moments that remind both allies and rivals that Wetangula's camp will not let dissent go unchallenged. They are performed as warnings, not necessarily to trigger violence, but to freeze doubt. In politics where survival depends on visible commitment, a man cocking a weapon in public is not simply about safety, it is about control, about showing that authority will be defended at all costs, and supporters witnessing that show see clear lines drawn between belonging and betrayal. Yet the other side of politics is less visible. While critics laugh at the theatrics, Wetangula's allies point to programs they say anchor progress: the Hustler Fund, cooperative ventures, initiatives built around youth empowerment. The irony is clear. Moments of chaos dominate headlines and trend on social media, while policy work that can reshape livelihoods struggles for attention. Violence did not break out that day, but the threat of it showed just how fragile democracy becomes when rivalries turn personal. A single moment with a cocked weapon was enough to remind everyone how quickly politics can slide into danger when anger overrides reason. Kenya's future depends on leaders who choose responsibility over intimidation, especially as the 2027 race looms closer. So here's the real question for all of us. If politics keeps playing out through threats and theatrics, what happens the day those weapons are no longer used as symbols, but as tools of violence?